The Vegas Golden Knights find themselves in an awkward predicament without starting goalie Robin Lehner for the entire season. Could we see them hook up a trade with the Montreal Canadiens or possibly even the New York Islanders? We also have other news out of Vegas. The young forward Nolan is also expected to miss the entire year, and his career could be in jeopardy. Plus, could Milan Lucic find his way back to Boston? We have some more signings to discuss as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As you can see, I'm back in my home recording studio, my normal spot here. I'm going to be heading back on another little small trip in a few days, but for the next couple days, you'll see normal, regular studio videos here. Of course, there have been some other ones posted to the channel over the last week or week to 10 days, even though I haven't really been here much. I did have some pre-recorded videos that I did ahead of time back a couple weeks ago, like a lot of the prospect videos, any of those series you've been watching, or even some of the trade review videos where we've looked back a couple of years later at a trade to see how things have worked out. A lot of those were done a couple of weeks back, so obviously I looked like I was here, but even though I haven't really been here much in the past couple of weeks and almost finished here with summer vacation. But on to today's news, and actually before we get into the news, I do want to take a moment because the last couple of days I've been on the road a lot, heading back home. So the last couple of videos you've seen, like I said, have all been pre-recorded. I haven't done like a news-related or updated type of video here in 2 to 3 days. So unfortunately, the hockey world did lose one of its biggest, youngest fans, and that's Edmonton Oilers fan Ben Stelter. Of course, many of you probably got familiar with Ben. I know I first heard his story earlier this past season. Unfortunately, Ben suffered from, I think it's called glioblastoma, a form of cancer. He was going through his battle. I know his dad posted his journey and his story and a lot on Twitter. I will show you a couple of quick pictures in case you never got to see Ben or didn't know his story. And I'll also put a link as well to his dad's Twitter if you do want to go and have a look through and kind of see what Ben's journey was like. Unfortunately, the little guy had a really tough go in the last couple of days here. We just found out that he unfortunately lost his battle and has passed away. I know he was the biggest Oilers fan, loved Connor McDavid. As you can see, one of the pictures I just showed you, he got a chance, and once his father made his story a little bit more public, trying to see what he could do for his son, knowing that he had a real tough battle and was in, might not have a lot of time, basically. He was able to get hooked up with the Oilers, McDavid and Draisaitl and a lot of the other Oilers guys, Hyman, Nuge. They all kind of really took this kid in and became like their own, basically. And he had quite a finish here, as every time he was there in the building, the Oilers were winning. He had for the longest time an undefeated streak in games, but they had him brought in a lot for games. He just had a real long, tough battle here, and obviously it's just not fair at all to see kids have to deal with this. I don't think, you don't want to see anybody, but especially young children. Had such a long future ahead of them. This kid loved hockey like no other, so I just wanted to offer my condolences, acknowledge his passing. Certainly, I don't know if there's obviously much of anything we can do, but obviously, like, the family is and the dad and parents and siblings, I'm sure, are crushed and heartbroken. I know when I first saw the news, it was rather heartbreaking to see. I hadn't seen any updates in a while, and I thought maybe he was going to pull through and win his battle, but of course, not knowing a lot about the condition, I later learned that the survival rate is extremely low, and it's just an unfortunate thing. So Ben Stelter is no longer with us. I certainly want to wish our condolences to his family, and I know the Oilers are likely going to do something to honor the young man here when the season starts. I don't know what they'll do, but I'm sure they're going to do something to honor him. So just want to acknowledge his passing here. Like I said, it was a couple days ago, but I hadn't done an actual updated video since then. So so rest in peace, little Ben. On to today's news. Now we do have some signings. Some of these signings are from the past 24 hours or so they're not the freshest news, but the news is the Chicago Blackhawks and the Vegas Golden Knights have made a couple of signings. We also have one from the Flyers too. The Hawks have re-signed defenseman Caleb Jones. He gets a 1-year contract at $1.35 million. So of course Jones came over from the Edmonton Oilers last year, of course, with his brother Seth, who came from Columbus in that big trade and a signing extension Of course, things have changed a lot in Chicago since that's happened, but Jones gets a 1-year deal, 135. We'll see what the future holds for him there. And they also re-signed Philip Kurashev, who gets a 1-year deal at $750 coming out of his entry-level contract. Obviously, I thought Kurashev might get a little bit more than that. I thought he had had his moments last year where he certainly, had a nice little season. Nice to see him get an opportunity. And I know he's a player that the Hawks are hoping to see more development and, continued growth from in the coming year. The Golden Knights signed a couple of 3-year extensions for some players that they're hoping will become bigger parts of the team. And they certainly are going to need these cheaper contracts in the mix to level up the salary cap here, as they obviously, like many teams, but as we've talked about with Vegas, are really tight up against it and have had to make a lot of roster moves and, correspondingly here. But they signed young centerman Paul Cotter. He gets a 3-year extension at $775. Didn't play a ton last year, but he did get into 7 games, scored 2 goals. And obviously they were, impressed with that. He did have a pretty solid American Hockey League season, which obviously earned him the opportunity to go up. Year 1 of the contract extension is a 2-way deal, and then the final 2 years are a 1-way deal. So they certainly see him, developing into, even if it's a bottom 6 role, it's something that they can see here in the next little while. And one of their first picks from the first draft, Jake Leschyshyn, of course, his father Curtis also played in the NHL. 3-year deal for him, $766,000 average annual value. He appeared in 41 games last year and only put up 6 points, but still a young player who also continued to develop here. And Vegas is hoping to have him more in the lineup as well. And just shortly a few moments ago, I noticed that the Flyers also re-signed Jackson Cates. He gets a 1-year, 2-way contract, $775 at the NHL level and $120,000 at the American Hockey League level. Now, on to some of the trade speculation here of the day. There's still more rumors speculating about the potential return of Milan Lucic to the Boston Bruins. Now, this seems to be coming from a variety of sources. Of course, I think, like I said before, when I first talked about it back maybe a week to 10 days ago, Lucic, I think the whole thing here kind of stems from the whole Bruins reunion, I guess we could call it. A bunch of them were in Italy. Tuukka Rask and his spouse were having a wedding. I'm not sure if it was an actual wedding or like a vow renewal, what it was, but they were big Rask, celebration in Italy. And of course, a lot of current and former teammates of the Boston Bruins were in attendance. You saw David Krejci, David Pastrnak, Marchand, McAvoy. There's a whole bunch of them. A lot of the stuff was posted and shared through social media, a lot of videos, pictures, etc. And it kind of, now we have confirmation since then that Krejci is returning, Bergeron is returning. So you kind of put all that together, and it's just all of a sudden you see Lucic with his old buddies, and then you're like, maybe they're bringing, kind of put the band back together, so to speak, here, and see if they can make kind of like a last dance, if you will, like the Michael Jordan documentary, or one last run here together. And it makes you wonder if they would. There was some talk about that. I think a lot of it was purely speculative. I'm not sure there was really any sources indicating that the teams actually had any real conversations. It was more of a, wondering if this could happen type of thing. A bunch of hockey writers, a few of them, writing articles on the story, kind of seeing if it can happen. Essentially, the thought is this, is that the Flames are not in a position where they feel like they really have to move Lucic. His contract is not the most favorable. He makes more than he should, but of course that's not his fault. But Lucic is still a player who can contribute and play a role, and is certainly a good leader, a good veteran guy. The Flames do value what he brings. Without looking at the dollar signs, I think it's fair to say that his coach and his teammates really like him there. So I don't think they're in a situation where they really are looking to move on from him. But the talk was, we've seen a blockbuster trade, one of the biggest trades in the last couple decades, with the Flames recently after, having to move Matthew Tkachuk to the Florida Panthers, that maybe they might be looking to, would they be interested to move some cap space out, essentially, to maybe make another big move. I mean, obviously they lost Tkachuk, they lost Gaudreau, they got Huberdeau in. They need to sign Uyghur. They could probably use some space. They're probably going to move a defenseman too, because they have way too many. Could they maybe be involved in another significant trade? And obviously, having some extra space would very much come in handy. But the thought is that the Bruins really do want to bring Lucic back. If they feel like they're missing that intangibles and stuff that he brings to the table, that they're going to have to kind of sweeten the deal to make Calgary really perk up and listen, to have a chance to make it happen, especially if they want the Flames to retain any salary or lower that cap or whatever, because the Bruins certainly have they're tied up enough against it as well. So it's not going to be the easiest to do without money going out. And it's really hard to say what Calgary would want if they did it. So as much as it continues to be something that I see talked about and articles written and speculation. So essentially, I just think it's a situation where if Boston is really interested, like some seem to think they are, that they're going to have to get a hold of Flames and make an offer that they can't refuse. And I don't know that they're going to want to pay that kind of a price for a reunion with Lucic. Or, depending on how long some of these other vets stick around, maybe Lucic goes back to Boston as a free agent next year. You never know. If they're really that interested, they could see a reunion maybe next year. So we'll have to see. Now, on to Vegas. Vegas, of course, got the bad news in Robin Lehner a few days ago that he's out for the entire season. Of course, we knew he was battling multiple injuries last year. I know the team seemed to not really want to talk about it or deny it. There was different reports about him having shoulder and hip stuff going on. A lot of it was denied, and now we're hearing that he's going to be out for the entire season due to hip injury. So obviously, I think there was a lot more to it and a lot more accuracy than many were given credit for at the time of the original reporting. But the fact is now that Vegas is in a tough spot. Fortunately, because of the rules around LTIR, they should be able to consider bringing in another goalie because they can put Robin on LTIR and spend above the cap on his cap hit. Of course, they already have Shea Weber's contract. They were already going to be in that kind of a situation as it is. They gave away Max Pacioretty and Dylan Coughlin for nothing, and now Pacioretty himself is out for 6 months after suffering an Achilles tendon tear. So obviously, it's an interesting situation in Vegas, but it makes you wonder if you look around the NHL. There's been a few more articles today from writers speculating on who they could turn to pick up a veteran goalie who could play that role for them, because as it stands now, they're going to have Logan Thompson and probably Michael Hutchison as their goalie tandem next year. And honestly, I don't think that this is a team, we know that they're not patient. They want to win yesterday. They spent a lot of money. They're going to be over the cap. This team is in it to win it. They're not interested in finishing out of the playoffs or just being an average NHL team. So, I don't think that kind of goalie tandem is what they want. I mean, Logan Thompson had his moments last year. He looks like a good young goalie with a lot of potential, but I think you need to insulate him and not have to rely on him to play 60 games next year. That's kind of crazy for the youngster. So bringing in a veteran who can play a regular game and give them a chance to win every night would be a huge help. And you can't help but wonder if Jake Allen in Montreal could very well be that guy. He's got 1 year left on his contract, not making a ton of money when you look at that $2.5 million range. Now, obviously, a lot of this is going to depend on Carey Price. But one thing, Jake was brought in by the former GM Marc Bergevin, was extended by Marc Bergevin. The current regime not really attached to him. Obviously, he played there last year during the changes. And I think that they'll keep Jake around if Carey Price is not going to be able to go next year. But everything I've heard about Price in the last little while, everything seems to be positive. Now, of course, it's not a guarantee until he gets to camp and goes through everything. And, things could always change. And Montreal, I'm sure, knows more than what is known publicly on this situation. But you have to think that with Price, Allen, Montembeault, Primo, they could afford to move a guy. And I think Jake would be more appealing to a team like Vegas than a guy like Montembeault. There's no doubt about it. So certainly, what could they, maybe trade in return? Well, I don't know what the asking price would be. Maybe they send a couple of draft picks. Maybe we talk about a prospect. Maybe the Habs try to pry young defenseman Nicholas Hag out of the Vegas. Now, I don't know if they would do that 1-for-1. But the thing is Vegas is not trading from a position of strength. They're in a predicament. And if a team is going to help them out and give them a veteran goaltender, they're going to want something back of value. It's just that simple. And, that young defenseman who's unsigned at this point makes you wonder maybe if he would be a player that Montreal might play hardball to try to get in return. To me, they're a little weak in the forward group already as Vegas, so I'm not sure that they would want to move a forward. Montreal, I don't think would really want a forward back anyway. I think we're either looking at maybe a young defenseman or maybe some picks would probably be the asking price. At least that's my best assumption. But it makes a ton of sense. We've seen what Jake was able to do in Montreal last year, even playing in a tough situation on a team that was struggling at the bottom of the league. He did do well and give them a chance to win on a fairly regular basis, even with a weak decor in front of him. So he could be, a good help there. Now, another guy they could look to as well would be Semyon Varlamov with the New York Islanders. I mean, obviously, the Islanders are rumored to be signing Nazem Kadri. They're also rumored to be looking to shed some cap space. Well, this is a prime example. Varlamov does have a potential, blockage here that he could do here with the trade because he does have a modified known trade. So there's going to be some teams that he won't allow a trade to go to if they try to make it happen. Many people believe that Vegas wouldn't be one of them. I mean, it's a destination that still a lot of players are very open to going to. I think that could change, though, based on what we've seen out of the team and how some of the players have left in their relationships and how things have been handled. But for the most part, I think, a lot of teams and players, are quite open to going there regarding, the tax situation, the lifestyle, all the things that comes with it. And Varlamov obviously doesn't have much on a contract. It's 1 year. If he gets traded there, he knows he's going to be a UFA soon. So ultimately, I don't know that he'd have a huge issue with it. That could give them the space they need, give Sorokin more of a chance to play, which I think he's capable of, and it ultimately could accomplish a lot for the Islanders if all the contrary stuff turns out to be true. Obviously, Josh Bailey's a player that they've been talking about, as a lot of NHL reporters saying that they're actively trying to move, but he's got 2 years at $5 million. I mean, that's not going to be easy to do. Certainly, as challenging as that would be, this might be the much easier path of least resistance, so to speak. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know if Lou really wants to break up his goalie tandem. I understand you need two good goalies. But if you really are bringing in Kadri, something's got to give. We've heard rumblings about the Islanders all summer about Kadri and all these other signings that they apparently have all, in Lou's top drawer. But it's not even confirmed. Kevin Weeks went on Twitter a couple days ago and said expect a slew of signings by Lou to be announced in the next 48 hours. Well, nothing's come from it. If I were reporters, I probably wouldn't be talking about the Islanders a whole lot, because every time Lou sees reports, he's probably just saying, yep, no, I'm going to make you wait more, because that's just how he rolls. We've heard cases before of trade rumors leaking out about the Islanders, and he kibosh deals, or even back in the Devil days or other, when he was with the Leafs, like everywhere. That's just how Lou operates. He does not want anybody knowing his business, and when stuff leaks out, he just puts an end to it often. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, Varlamov and Allen, I think, are two prime candidates, and obviously a lot of hockey writers out there are talking about it. Speculation that they could be the two main players that the Vegas Golden Knights turn to look for a Robin Lehner type of replacement, where they're only on 1 year deals. It makes a lot of sense here for them to target that kind of a player. They're veterans, they can play, they can give their team a chance to win, and there's no long-term commitment. Assuming Leonard's able to continue playing after next season, then they don't have to worry about it from a salary cap perspective. Also in Vegas, to expand their LTIR pool, not only do they have Robin Lehner and Shea Weber, but now Nolan Patrick's expected to miss the entire season as well. Obviously, the young forward, there's even some concern his career could be in jeopardy. This apparently is over some sort of an upper body injury. He's expected to be out the entire season, so it's another contract that they can add to their LTIR pool. Of course, Patrick, if you look at things now, this was scheduled to be his 5th season since being drafted. Who was projected to go number 1 overall, ended up going number 2. He's had a rough go. Hasn't really come anywhere close to putting up the offensive totals that he was expected based on how he played in junior. At this point in his career, at the end of the season that's coming up, after 5 years, he would have been eligible to play 384 games. So that's because of obviously one of those seasons being shortened due to the pandemic, and he's only going to end up playing so far in 222. So that's 162 man games missed by the time we get to the end of the next year, assuming he misses the whole season as is expected right now. So that's a lot. That's a lot of time in a 5-year career. Of course, the bulk of that is in the past 2 seasons, where he only played, I think it was 25 games last year. Going to miss the entire season coming up. He had missed, obviously, bits and pieces of the previous 3 seasons to start his career. Nothing too substantial. He's anywhere from 5 to 10 games, I think, each year. Of course, he had that headache, concussion type recurring issue he was dealing with in Florida. And now he's got other stuff going on too that's keeping him out long term. So you really have to wonder if another young player's career could be over before it really ever got too established. It's unfortunate for such a high pick and a player with so much potential, but Vegas has had their fair share of not great news here recently, but obviously having him go on LTIR will kind of expand that LTIR pool as they need to replace more players, and especially in the goaltending department. So we'll see what happens. If they go for a guy like Allen, though, that's not going to go very deep into their LTIR pool. So they could also look to add in other areas. They still have to sign Nick Hag. might be the better way to go, where Varlamov makes more money, but we'll have to see what happens. There's lots of other factors here that's going to impact their decisions and the other team's decisions if they're going to be willing to make a move with Vegas and send a goaltender their way. So let me know your thoughts on today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll talk about it further in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.